What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. Penultimate is the word I'm looking for. Penultimate episode of the Burning Questions podcast. I have also just realised, Andy, they are not going to be able to hear you. I have just realised that they are not going to be able to hear any of your sound. Hang on, let me deal with that first, and then we will crack on. Let me add. How do I do this? This is going to be live in stream, Andy. You can wave at them if you'd like, but they're not going to be able to hear anything, and I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. Let me just put something up right. Right. There we go.
Great start.
There we go. They can hear you now for a little bit, and then I'll have to do it again when we switch screens.
What is going on, my friend?
What a start. Welcome, everyone. Apologies. Welcome back to another episode of Burning Questions. Andy, how are you doing? How was your weekend? How was it in Vietnam? Traveling again, as always.
Yeah, a classic Burning Questions style start. Apologies for that. Everything is good. I'm actually a little bit sick. Last week we were in London. It was really nice to meet you, Harry. Had a great time, and now I am back in Vietnam. So everything is good. Ready for the last 2 game weeks. I think excited for the double game week. It looks so nice on paper, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I just have to add you again to the other source.
Sorry for the technical issues.
Oh. Now they can hear you.
Oops, sorry for the technical issues on behalf of Mr. Harry over here.
Sorry, we're there. Cool.
Yeah, you know what it is, guys? He's too happy because he's tied the knot over the weekend. So congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
I think everyone's gonna find out anyway. So
it's all over Twitter.
Yeah, out of the blue, man.
Out
of the blue.
I kept my cards close to my chest. I didn't even tell Andy that or anyone that it was coming, really, apart from my family. So thank you. Yeah, crazy weekend, and now very busy with planning and stuff already, or almost planning stuff already. So yeah, quick turnarounds with these things. I didn't realize quite how fast I'd have to start thinking about it.
Yeah, I asked before the stream started, so when's the date? And he said next summer. I said, why? Because I need to avoid the FPL season. So just a little insight into what happens before the stream starts. Okay, let's get a flow going. Cool. It was a rough start, but
I've got our scores up. Apologies to all podcast listeners. We've got our scores up for last week. We actually finished up on the same score, 108 points apiece. I had Bruno Fernandes starting, and I luckily got Son in off the bench. You weren't quite as lucky with any bench jam. You have Richarlison sat first on the bench, but a good green arrow for you, up to 16k, say 15 points outside the top 10k now. 2 weeks left, bench boost for both of us this week. You must be pretty happy with how it's gone.
Yeah, I think Richarlison points is nice. It's a small, I think he's 0.1, 0.3% owned, so it would have been big differential points, even those 3 points. But if you look at my front 7, all of them had decent returns. So it's not the end of the world. I was never going to start him anyway. I was unsure if he was going to even start. But going into gameweek37, the fact that I have Richarlison in place while Bruno is injured, maybe a little bit of luck there too. It's looking good in the front 7. The issue for me is that Harry Maguire's spot, because I am on bench boost, I do need to replace him, which we'll discuss further in the podcast. But besides that, yeah, you're right. 16 points from the top 10K. So I think I need to play it, strategically here. I don't need to be too differential for the sake of being differential, but 16 points I think can be made up in a bench boost, hopefully.
Yeah, 16 points is probably one of those that, 80% of the top 10K still have their bench boost for this week. So it isn't as clear cut as a bench boost is necessarily going to get you a green arrow, but it feels like for you, play this week sensibly, and if you go into game week 38 where you're a little bit behind, there are a couple of ways, as we've spoken about, like Salah potentially, that you could use as a differential going into the final day. But yeah, with so many people on bench boost this week, it just isn't a given. It doesn't feel like anymore that chips are just a given green arrow anymore because of how many people are going to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Notorious is saying we've got the exact same 11. We didn't at the start of the week because I started Fernandez, and yeah, I mean your Maguire injury and my Fernandez injury, but the and the bench is a little bit different, but the template on wildcard was pretty strong, and we were both in quite good positions that we didn't need to go too crazy differential. You did a little bit with your Richarlison pick, right? But we were in positions
Yeah.
where we were actually trying to find out, who everyone else was going to go with so we could hold rank a little bit. Well, I particularly was. So yeah, same 11s, but the bench looks pretty different, and we both have pretty different obstacles to overcome, particularly this week.
Yeah, correct. I mean, if you look at the entire like sort of schedule or season we've had, Harry, like from game week 1 till now, I think there are times where our teams overlap, but generally speaking, I would say we played very different ways. Not super different, but different teams to get to where we are. And it really is about maybe 1 to 4 different positions that make the difference. And again, like our teams look similar this week, but the routes we have to take for the transfers are going to be very different. So hopefully we cover that. I think it's also important to cover people without a, wildcard 35, without the perfect bench boost team,
Yeah.
like what hits are worth it, how many hits are necessary to get to these essential players. There's a lot to cover today.
Amazing. So, what we're going to start off with is having a look at the fixture ticker for this week. It's got the last 2 weeks on, and it's worth having a look for game week 38 because you might want to buy someone and then, it puts you in a little bit of a difficult position going into game week 38. And you've only got one transfer to use after this week. So, the majority of players you buy this week, you'll be stuck with, right, for the last 2 weeks of the season. You've got the teams with a double, the top 6, all at the top here. And then you have some teams with a single game week. There are a few picks with a single that you can look to buy this week. There aren't loads. I think last week was more the week that you'd buy players without a double. Now that the double's actually here, it feels more buy players with a double this week than maybe some of the singlers. Like you could have bought Everton last week, you could have bought Arsenal last week. Now that the week is actually here, it feels less of a priority to buy them this week than maybe it was before. But we'll discuss a few of those as well. Top of the fixture ticker. Let's start with the top two. The two teams that we'll both want to be talking about. Spurs up first. Burnley at home, City at home, Sheffield United away their last 3. Great fixtures. The form has not massively been there. I mean, a couple of difficult fixtures in the last 2. Chelsea away, Liverpool away. How are you feeling about Spurs? How are you feeling about Son? And you own Richarlison. We're expecting him to come back in, presumably now, to start both.
Yeah, just in case the internet gets spotty, it's my end, Harry. So
Okay.
apologies there. Yeah, look, I think the game over the weekend, the first half was just disaster, right? I mean, it's a tale of two halves, let's say, not even two halves, tale of 60 minutes and then the last 30 minutes. And in that first 60 minutes I was just feeling like, oh, this is not good going into game week 37. Absolutely destroyed by Chelsea. By the way, I was at that game as were you, and
We
very,
haven't
very
discussed
impressed
that.
by. I know, and
I'd let you have the
it was
day off and not come with my Chelsea goggles on telling you, did you enjoy the game?
I loved it. I think it was like actually one of the very first stadiums I ever visited as a kid was Stamford Bridge, believe it or not. And so it was really kind of like coming back full circle and just to experience a Thursday night atmosphere of a Premier League match is amazing, right? So I had a good time. I was very close to Son. I could see the frustration he had. I saw some very cool plays where he was wide open for a long ball from Romero, but Romero just, refused to pass that, or it's a very difficult pass in general. And then I could see on corner set plays, he going up to Romero and saying, make this pass, make this pass. So when you're live in action, you can see all these different
Yeah.
sort of like small team talks and stuff. It was super cool. And I must give you credit for Madueke because, damn, he is really, really good. So I think he's going to be hopefully a star in the coming years. Maybe not, but
He's one of those
um,
enablers that people are already looking at for next season, right? He's only had a
yeah.
few games. What price are they going to bring him at? If he's under, like, if he's 6 or less, he's going to be that game week 1 enabler, it feels like.
Yeah, because you reckon Palmer's going to be so expensive next year that he might be the Palmer sort of enabler replacement,
Yeah.
right? But just on the ball, you could see the confidence, the cockiness. I want to say, you need a little bit of that on the wings in the Premier League. So yeah, he's one to watch out for. I definitely will give you that. We're talking about Chelsea here. Before we go there, the Tottenham game again. It was that last 30 minutes when I felt like Richarlison came on. They sort of turned it up, and everything seemed to work a lot better. So I feel okay about Tottenham, especially this Burnley game being so important to them. Just to like, it really reassures that Europa League spot. I think the top four is already gone, so they need to win this game. I think they're going to come out strong. I expect Richarlison to start, and if you're looking for a Bruno replacement, he could be a huge differential going into game week 37. Mm.
Yeah, I agree. I like Richarlison. The other thing probably to talk about is Maddison. There are a few people with the likes of Maddison and Brennan Johnson in their teams at the moment. They have definitely not been performing well from an FPL point of view recently. I think Richarlison is a great replacement for Bruno if Bruno is out. Son is still probably the number one because we don't know Richarlison is definitely going to start all of the last three games. Richarlison I like. Maddison and Johnson, though, feel like it's difficult when they've got a double to sell them.
Mm.
But would you consider a sideways move from either of those to Richarlison? Do you think Richarlison is clearly above those two? Because we're not even sure Maddison's going to start both at the moment.
I have a sneaky suspicion that Kulusevski's going to be dropped at least for the Burnley game. Move Johnson to the right, Richarlison top, and Son left, Madison right behind. Because I think that's what worked really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for looking at two games, would I say I'm confident Johnson starts both? No. Would I say I'm super confident that Madison starts both? Maybe more than Johnson, but not 100%. So Son is the only reassured double starter. Why not take a chance on Richarlison if you're going to go for a second mid? I feel like he's got the out of position number 9. I mean, he scored a goal, had an assist. And I think what's important to realize is that Son came to life when the combination with Richarlison was working really well. They just really clicked together. And look, 30 minutes is not great to base off anything because you're playing against a Trent who's defensively weak as well. But there was a glimmer of hope, and that's all we can base game week 37 off of, because before this last 30 minutes they've been awful. Let's be real here. So I like Richarlison as the second midfield option after Son.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. If we're in a position where you own Maddison now, though,
Mm.
what would you be doing with him? Let's say in your team, if you had Maddison there and instead of your Richarlison pick, I just can't see Maddison being a good pick. I just look at single game week players and thinking they're equally as good as Maddison. You could hope he plays Burnley and you get something out of that, but I just,
I get it. Yeah.
yeah.
I think you have to work backwards a little bit, Harry. So like you go into game week 38, kind of think about what moves or what options you have on the table. Like for example, in my case, if I make one defend, okay, so I have Maguire this week. I need to replace him. If I make one transfer with Maguire, then I'll have two transfers in game week 38 where I can consider getting Salah.
Yeah.
If I make two transfers this week to get the likes of, let's say, Guvardiol, then I can only get to the likes of, let's say, Asaka or Havertz with one transfer in game week 38. So you kind of want to work backwards, see what you want to do in 38, what your options are. And then if you have a, let's say, luxury position of moving Madison to Richarlison,
Yeah.
then maybe that's the decider in this decision making. At the same time, that's not all of it, right? It could just be a gut feeling. I just don't like Madison as a pick. I think I need to attack here. And you can also make that move because you're right. I don't feel confident with Madison as a pick at this moment in time.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just that sideways move always feels like a difficult one to make when you're faced with it in FPL,
Yeah.
right? You know, if you were looking to buy one of them new, it'd be very obvious which you'd buy, and you wouldn't even consider buying Madison, I don't think, this week. But would you move from one to the other? It just feels, yeah, it feels like very luxury. Maybe if you're in a position where, you've got 2 free transfers and you can use a free transfer on it, quite probably I would
Yeah.
do that then. Um,
But it is also the time in the season where like you need to be chasing points. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? And
Yeah.
maybe I'm thinking too strategically here. Like
Mm.
if Madison's a bad pick, you gotta hop off of him
We
because
only
you don't
have
have
two
any.
weeks. We only got 2 weeks left,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
and in
Exactly.
game week 38 away at Sheffield United, who are you going to want?
Exactly. Mm.
You're going to want Richarlison again, aren't you?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
as much as I hate it, I probably would do it. I probably would sell both Johnson and Madison and buy Richarlison this week. I'd do it for free.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd do it for a hit.
No, definitely not for a hit, but for free, certainly you would consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, defensively, doesn't look like any team apart from Arsenal massively wants to keep a clean sheet again at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of us have Porro. I've got Porro and Vicario. I mean, I'm going to end up keeping them because they have decent enough fixtures, both, Burnley at home, Sheffield United away. If they keep one clean sheet in the last three, I don't expect anyone else to do better than that. Like, I don't see anyone keeping maybe two clean sheets. Maybe you get two from City, but we already have triple up on City, right? So
Yeah.
defensively, like it is what it is. Vicario is fine if you need him. He made 8 saves against Liverpool, so quite good there. Then you've got someone like Pedro Porro, Romero, and then Van de Ven, right? So if you've got a spare slot and you're looking for a Maguire replacement, a Van de Ven is fine. He's fine. Pedro Porro taking some set pieces, but if Maddison starts, he might not take as many. He's been boosted by Maddison being dropped. And then you have Romero in this like weird middle ground between the two of them, but does have a little bit of a, attacking threat there. I just don't. No defender I particularly want to use a transfer on unless you have someone that's injured and you have to sell them. That's kind of how I feel with all the defenders this week.
Yeah. I mean, there's no standout defenders in all the teams except maybe Man City. And like on paper, it doesn't look too bad, right? You've got Burnley, Man City. Maybe it's definitely a clean sheet wipeout, but at least you have potential attacking return in Paro, and then Sheffield United. So on paper, it looks like potentially one or two clean sheets, but the reality of the fact is they're not going to keep a clean sheet. Like, I don't think so. Maybe one. So you're really basing this off of two things. One, like, are your Spurs attacker defenders going to get some attacking returns? And two, compared to the other team's defenders, is these Spurs options better? So that's how I would sort of assess it. I think Poro is a no-brainer here just because we're lacking defenders. However, if I had to pick a second one, depending on price point and if price is allowed, I really like Romero as an option. I think he's much more attacking than people give him credit for. Pushes high up in the line towards the end of games and actually a set piece monster in many ways too. So I think Romero is a really good option as well if you want to go for a second Tottenham defender. But first, definitely Poro.
Yeah. And then Van de Ven is only like 4.4, right? So,
Yeah, not bad.
Decent enough cheap option if you end up going there. Next on the list is Chelsea. Probably the flavour of the moment outside, Man City. People are starting to really look at them going into the double. Feels like Palmer and Jackson are kind of a lock in a lot of people's teams. Then you're looking at Madueke. A lot of people have Gusto, and then you have Petrovic in goal. So just to cover off Madueke, we spoke about him. He's looking very, very impressive. He's young, he's strong, and I expect him to start all 3 of the last games. We are still fighting for European places, so we're not really a team that's going to look to rotate over the last few weeks. So I do think Palmer, Jackson, and Madueke will start all of the last 3 games, and that's probably the best triple up. We've kept back-to-back clean sheets, but they've both been at home, right? We're now going away to Forest, away to Brighton. I'm not as confident on us defensively as I am on the attack going into these games. I suppose the question comes, as Chris has asked in the chat, would you be buying Jackson for a hit? Is that how good he's looking at the moment? Is that how beneficial you think the double can be for him? But yeah, looking at the attack, those are the 3 names people have spoken about, and Nkunku, maybe Mudryk or someone like that, but I'm not certain they start both the remaining games in the double and then in 38. So it kind of feels like Palmer, Madueke, Jackson at the moment. And I think Jackson probably is worth a hit from most of the forwards that we've got, apart from, of course, like Haaland and Isak.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's funny how fast the Jackson narrative changed
Yeah.
after. I mean, that Tottenham goal was kind of lucky. Let's be real here. And then he was very solid over the weekend. So yeah, Jackson I think is creeping up there to be an essential player. But you could also bet against him. You could go Holland, Isak, and double up on Wilson. Like he's not super essential, but there's maybe not nuclear, but there's the potential he goes off this game week 37 because Chelsea are in a rhythm right now. This is 2 wins in a row for Chelsea, and Chelsea have done 2 wins in a row throughout the season, but it feels like a different type of 2 wins in a row, Harry, because there's a clearer build-up play and play style that's very convincing. The reason being, Cucurella coming into that inverted defend wing back role. I think before when they were struggling to build up, basically your two center backs split the keeper and there was not many places to pass the ball. But now with him coming in, Caicedo, Gallagher sort of pushing out to the right, Mudryk on the left, there's like more than 3 or 4 channels to pass to. So I think that has been a key to your shift in
Yeah.
momentum and form. So that doesn't mean Cucurella is a good FPL option, like just because he's the key to your better play style. But it definitely enhances the team and gives more of a philosophy and sort of a direction of play every time you guys enter the pitch. So yeah, I really like Jackson, Palmer, and one of Cucurella or Madueke as a third pick if I had to rebuild my wild card.
Yeah, and I think it's worth doing a little bit of detail on that Kukurea positioning. So for anyone who hasn't watched us, effectively what's happening is a bit like Arsenal do with Zinchenko.
Mm-hmm.
Kukurea playing at left back is inverting into like a defensive midfield role alongside Caicedo, which is
Caicedo.
allowing Gallagher to push up and basically create a sort of front five that we're looking at the moment with Mudryk on the left, Gallagher and Palmer in the middle, Madueke on the right, and Jackson just in front of them. Now, what that does defensively is it effectively creates a back three with Badiashile on the left, where he's very suited to playing a sort of left of a back three. Thiago Silva in the middle, meaning that he is completely defended against and never is isolated on his own because he's in between two other centre backs, with Trevor Chalobah playing right back. Now, the reason this is important is for those of you who own Malagusto. I don't think it bodes very well for Gusto if you own him going into the double, because if we start playing an attacking fullback in that place where Trevor Chalobah is playing at the moment, either Kukurea doesn't have the ability to go into midfield and they play a back four again,
Mm.
or we just play Gusto in that right back sort of right centre back role, which just doesn't suit him at all either, and will naturally make us weaker defensively. So I am very not confident that I just don't, I'm not certain at all that he's going to start. I think it's very possible that we don't see Gusto start another game this season because of the system that we have stumbled on. And I don't see which of our centre backs will drop out for him. Think it will be too much of a system change, and Gusto will want to attack. And just to tell Gusto, like, why would we pick Gusto in that Chelsea lineup if we're not going to let him do what he's good at, which is going forward?
Yeah.
Now, we could, in
Mm.
theory, invert it the other way and drop Kukurea, but Gusto's not like he's not built to play that midfield role. So if you own Gusto, I don't think I'd sell him for a hit, but I would consider selling him if it frees up a Jackson, right? So a lot of people are looking at they can't get to Jackson because they've got Petrovic, Gusto, Palmer, and in that situation, I probably would look to sell Gusto. That's how just not confident I am that I think he's going to start any games in the double. He probably will start something between now and the end of the season, but I wouldn't be banking on it based on this new Chelsea system and how well it's going without him in it.
I mean, I think that's a really good breakdown. Fully explained tactically, but also like applies to FPL. If you're on a bench booth and you have Gusto, then if according to you, that means you should even sell him for a hit, no?
I would sell him for a hit if you're going to use the Chelsea spot elsewhere.
Yeah,
So
but you want 15 players, no matter, regardless of that. You want 15 playing players, no?
yeah, but I suppose if you're going to sell him to someone with a single, I probably wouldn't do that. But
Mm.
if you're going to sell him to, like, I wouldn't sell him to a United defender for a hit, for example, right? I wouldn't
Yeah.
sell him to a Spurs defender for it. Like, would I do Gusto to Van de Ven for a hit? Probably not, unless you're
Yeah.
reinvesting that Chelsea spot elsewhere, right? If you're doing a Gusto to a Van de Ven for a hit in order to bring Jackson in, then yes, right? But I
Okay.
wouldn't just on the face of it do Gusto to Van de Ven for a -4. I'd do it for
What
free.
about uh-huh. What about Gusto to Cucurella for a hit?
Ooh. I mean, you're trying to predict the Chelsea lineups, right? And if Gusto starts 1 and Cucurella starts 2, I mean, I probably would because I just don't see Gusto starting both, and I think the chances are Cucurella will start both. But
I think so too.
it feels
Mm.
like a really weird hit to take.
It does. It does. Especially for just 2 games.
Yeah, but you have to think about
They
game
do
week
play.
38 as well, right?
Yeah.
Because we have Bournemouth
Yeah.
at home, and you'll probably want that defender on the final day.
Yeah. I just think that you guys are in such good form and
Yeah,
confidence and rhythm that you could really do well against Nottingham Forest. Sorry, NFL fans, but this could be a good game for you, even though it's away. So yeah, I
yeah,
just don't like the fact that you have a double week and the player that's iffy on starts. I just don't like that.
and with a player who's just come back from injury, right? So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it bodes. I don't think it bodes particularly well.
Yeah.
I don't think it bodes well at all for Gusto going into the double. Um, I mean, if you're in a good rank position, then I wouldn't sell him for a hit, right? Because you don't need to sacrifice the points. But if you're chasing in your own Gusto, feels like an obvious place to try and get lucky, right?
Yeah, I also think like your idea of changing Gusto down to someone else in order to fund that third Chelsea move or change the third Chelsea pick. Yeah, if it's for Jackson, okay, fair. But if it's for Madueke, it doesn't make sense because there's 4 other midfielders that I'd rather have over Madueke, you know? So I think the only scenario I see here is Gusto to Cucurella or Gusto to someone else in order to fund Jackson if you don't have.
Yeah, I suppose there's like nuances, right? Because if you've got a Fernandez, let's say you've got a Garnacho, right, and you've got a Gusto, and you can suddenly do Gusto to, I don't know who you'd buy, but someone in your defense, and then go
Okay.
Fernandez to Madueke, and because Fernandez is out, suddenly I like that quite a lot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there are like permutations of it. But I think the nuance of it is I don't mind selling Gusto for a hit if you use the Chelsea spot on something else.
Okay, okay.
And
Nice.
then Petrovic in goal, like probably
Yeah.
arguably the best or you can probably rotate Vicario, Petrovic, and like Edison as the best 3 keepers for the last 2 game weeks. So yeah, I like Petrovic. He should start on them all. Again, it's worth noting that the chances of Chelsea getting to game week 38 with nothing to play for are pretty low now.
Yeah.
So the chances of Chelsea rotating on the final day are low, which is why they are good buys this week as well. You're not going to have to worry about Chelsea rotation in game week 38 nearly as much as maybe some of the other teams.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I really like Petrovic. I think good fixtures, potential saves, potential
Yeah.
new 1 clean sheet in the 2. Bournemouth last game week. Yeah, it's like the perfect pick. So
Yeah.
no need to panic if you want to get to a not Gusto, a Cucurella.
Yeah.
Like Petrovic is fine. Mm.
Yeah.
And he's been delivering.
Absolutely. And he's one of the things I might look to correct this week on with my transfers, which we'll talk about in a moment. As Prisol is saying, like Gusto to Jackson for a hit. Like, yes, like I just would do that. I don't know
Yeah.
what forward you're selling or what defender you're buying, but on the grand scheme of things, yes, I would do that. Yes,
Nice.
I would do that. Cool. Next up is
Yeah.
Newcastle, which is an interesting one. Most of us have a Burn, Gordon, Isaac triple up. There isn't loads of others. I think Callum Wilson is probably the only other asset outside of those 3 that you could think about. But I do think it's worth us covering the goalkeeper situation because, of course, Nick Pope looks like he's back. And although they've been winning games comfortably, they haven't been, great defensively since Pope got injured. I do think Pope will probably come back in. They still are fighting between now and the end of the season. The question is, if you have Dubravka, would you do Dubravka to Pope, right? How confident are you on Pope starting both in the double, for example? So let's start in attack, and then we'll talk about the goalkeeper situation. I think Isak and Gordon are like pretty much no-brainer picks now. If you wanted to bet against one of them, Isak is better than Gordon, but they feel like obvious picks, particularly with the home game as part of their double.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're looking really, really good. I don't think there's much to discuss on Isak and Gordon, but I really want to discuss Callum Wilson. In our shoes, it's not easy to go there. I don't think it's necessary to go there because we own the likes of Isak, Jackson, and Holland already.
Yeah.
But let's say you don't own Jackson or you don't own Isak. Maybe not Isak, but let's say you don't own Jackson. I would seriously consider Callum Wilson. You know, he scores a goal every 114th minute. That's the fourth best in the league after, I think, Holland, Isak, and someone else. So, and Cole Palmer. So and we discussed this last week too, Harry, where it feels like every time he comes back from injury, he just on the score sheet. Like it's like one of those rare golden ticket picks in FPL where you have in your team, there's very high chance you're getting a return. So the only one in the attack that I'd be really kind of convinced to get potentially.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my words here. Would be Callum Wilson.
Sorry, the reason I'm looking down on my phone is someone in the chat just on Callum Wilson said that there are rumours that Callum Wilson might have another injury issue. So we're going to talk about Callum Wilson as if he's not injured. But if you're going to buy Callum Wilson, do check whether the injury rumours are true or not. Apparently, the Newcastle team haven't trained yet. They will go back into training today, which might give us news. So we don't know. There is rumours of a Callum Wilson picking up another injury. We're going to talk about him as if he's not injured, but do check that if you're going to go and buy him. So yeah, I agree. He's a really nice differential. And when he gets minutes, he scores goals. I was so surprised to see him start this game. I really was. Him and Barnes came off the bench and just kind of blew the opposition away when they came on in game week 36. Sorry, game week 35. I just thought that would be the blueprint for the rest of the season. And to see him start in a 4-4-2 was really, really interesting. It didn't damage Isak or Gordon at all, which is the other thing to note. But it was good for Wilson. Now, I also think if Wilson does start, he'll probably take penalties now. He wanted the penalty last week. And after Isak missed it, I think he'll take it now. So yeah, I really like him as a third forward. I just wouldn't pick him over Isaac, Haaland or Jackson. That's where I'm at. But if you're... Sorry, I was going to say if you're chasing, it's different, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show how much Eddie Howe trusts Callum Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Because you're messing up your number 9 position to cater in order to bring in another number 9. So I really like Callum Wilson as a differential if you can get to him. I think it's actually a really good option. Someone asked in the chat, would you pick Gordon over Richarlison? I mean, objectively speaking, yes, right? Like you're getting an 80, 90-minute player who's returning, who proved that they're informed to destroy teams away from home. You have a Brighton and Manchester United coming up next. I feel like Gordon is the safer, potentially better pick than Richarlison, who definitely has some upside, but there's also risk with it, with the form that they're in.
I agree. The only thing is when you add game week 38, Gordon goes away to Brentford, whereas Richarlison is away at Sheffield United. I know which of the two I'd rather have on the final day.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like one of those that it's what do you want from the final bits of the season?
I mean, what's interesting about that, Harry, is that if you look at your game week 38 team, most of us will have a benching dilemma in the front eight. Like it's not that like literally look at your front eight for game week 38. All your players have a good fixture, so I don't mind the Brentford Gordon last game week of the season either.
Yes, true. And I'm not. My plan is not to play Gordon on the final day. Actually, I like a lot of us on that game with 35 wildcard will either sell Gordon or probably bench him. So it's pretty close. I was going to say, if you're holding rank, I'd buy Gordon. If you need to chase, I'd buy Richarlison in that situation. I probably prefer Gordon over Richarlison. But yeah, defensively, there's people talking about, you know, Trippier. A, I don't think he's worth the money, and B, he's currently still not in Newcastle, completing the final stages of his recovery. To be certain he starts both in the double, I think are very low. I just wouldn't do it. It could be if he says on Friday, Trippier is back, he's ready to go, full stop. Can you even believe Eddie Howe in that situation?
No. It's a crazy FPL transfer. Like next season, Trippier's done for this season. There's no way you can bring him in with this little information. You know, why risk it? So. Yeah, I don't think we don't even need to discuss it, to be honest, Harry. Like,
if we saw him in training with the Newcastle team, like today or tomorrow, and he says on Friday he's fine, and you really need a differential, it's about the only situation I would even consider it, right? But if you don't need to take a risk, and we don't get any concrete news, there's just no way you can go there. Just no way you can go there.
Totally agree. What about Livramento? Speaking of Trippier.
I don't want to do that either because let's say Trippier is partially available for the double. There's no way you don't know that Lewis Hall starts both at left back. He's been really, really good for them, and he is a natural left back. So you don't know that Livramento is going to switch sides.
But we don't really need him in game week 38 from what I've looked at. I mean, maybe.
But let's say Trippier is in and around the squad for 37, and Trippier starts the second game in 37.
Yeah, but the argument I'm making is he doesn't start for both games in 37.
If he doesn't start both games for 37, then yeah, you can buy Livramento and you can buy Lewis Hall.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Trippier's not going to start game week 37 both games. I mean, it's a gut feel. But it just doesn't seem right to rush him back after he went to Dubai to do like a couple months of rehab.
No.
Like end of the season. What's the point, you know?
But why would you buy Livramento over a Burn?
Because he's more attacking. Have you owned Burn? Literally, there's no excitement at all.
Yeah, but I've owned Livramento and it's not that exciting either.
No, but he was in good positions over the weekend. Like there were some good moments for him.
Unless we get if we hear that, you know, Trippier is, you know, not going to play again, then you can go Hall and you can go Livramento. Yeah. If we hear that he's in and around the squad, then I don't think you can buy anyone that's not down Burn.
I mean, yeah, we're picking from some crumbs here, but I don't mind the Livramento shout. Like it's a little bit more exciting than Dan Burn.
Yeah.
Like
Dan Burn I suppose my point excitement. I suppose my point is we're expecting Trippier to be back from Dubai this week, is what we've heard, and we're expecting him to be. They were hoping he'd be back, ready to play minutes against Brighton. That was what we heard a couple of weeks ago. Now, and he'll also want to get minutes before the Euros. If we go into 37 with Trippier wanting minutes, that's when we have an issue with Livramento. If we don't get that, then absolutely Livramento is a good pick. But let's see what we hear. We're still expecting to hear Trippier is back in Newcastle this week is what we know. But yeah.
Okay.
But if he's not back, then absolutely Livramento is an exciting pick for a double that most people won't be able to take. Same with Lewis Hall.
With Schär out, is Kraft a decent option?
I mean,
is he attacking at all?
He's only, Burns up to 4.7. I was going to say he's only 4.4. I mean, it doesn't fill me with any excitement at all. I'd probably rather take the chance on one of the fullbacks over going with Kraft.
Wait, I have a question. In the Euros, Trippier plays left back, Walker plays on the right?
Depends if Luke Shaw's fit. Yeah.
If all three of them fit, what do you guys usually do? I'm trying to recollect my memory here.
Shaw left back, Walker right back.
Trippier sits out?
Yeah, I think that's what happened last tournament, but we basically
Yeah.
haven't had any friendlies where all of our fullbacks have been fit for like all year.
Yeah.
So we don't kind of know, but it was Shaw left back, Walker right back
Yeah.
last year. Like that's what we played in the final a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Okay.
So if you're looking at Newcastle defenders, bear in mind what you hear on Trippier later this week.
Yeah. Fair.
Next up, Manchester City. Probably the last one we need to spend a detail on, although maybe not because there's not loads of picks. Anything to say on Erling Haaland, or do we move past him?
I mean, I feel sorry for the non-captainers. I think they were getting a lot of slack.
Yeah,
But I could see why you didn't go for him as a captain. Like, I honestly understand the reasoning behind it. And it's easy to say in hindsight, like, how can you not go for him? But we didn't expect 5 goals. Like, did you expect that? I expected maybe 1 or 2. Here's a very interesting thing though. So obviously I was spending some time with Pross last week, and like we were having this, some sort of conversation about captaincy and why people go differential in captaincy. And I think one thing that I picked up was like when you go for a differential captain, you have to make sure the popular captain, you have to assess how many points you think they're going to get. So like when you want to attack the popular captain that week, you have to kind of have a strong inclination that, for example, Holland would get a maximum of 1 return or maybe potentially 0 returns versus your differential will get at least 2 returns.
yeah,
But a lot of times people just base sort of that differential captaincy off of, sort of gut feeling, and they don't take into consideration that the popular captain will get a floor of this many points. I don't know if that makes sense, Harry.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I do.
So, and also like captaincy in general, it's really like sort of betting a bit, And I don't bet. I hate that term, but it's like, going differential for the sake of it is you have to do it throughout the season to really like have a, average it out, if you know what I mean. So it's not easy. It's not easy. At the same time, we want to have fun with the game. So I'm not saying what I'm thinking is the right approach, but it's tough to go against the Holland captaincy when he had such a great fixture in Game 36.
Yeah, and yeah, no, I agree. As Kay is saying, I feel like this season and last season is different with captaincy differentials because finding differential captains when you're chasing is hard when you've got someone like Haaland who is so consistent and has the ability to score 4 goals in the league. That is
Yeah.
what you're betting against.
Also, it's
Salah,
unpredictable this year. Like
yeah,
last year was more predictable.
we knew we were, going when we wildcarded, we thought he'll do it at some point. You just hope you're on in the week that it happens. And it was this week. In previous years, Salah has been fantastic and one of the, if not the best FPL asset we've ever had in this game, now having 7 200 plus seasons. But he rarely, like 15 points were kind of Salah's ceiling, and he'd get returns consistently, but there were games that you could bet against him.
Yeah.
But you just know that Haaland's ceiling at the moment when he plays for City, yes, it hasn't happened as much this year, but his ceiling is so high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we're not
Yeah.
surprised. We're at the point now, whereas if our captain scores 1 goal, we're not like happy with it. When you played FPL 3 years ago, your captain scoring a goal was enough. That is not the case anymore because of what Erling Haaland has done with it. His ceiling is crazy high, like 20 points, and like they score 5 goals and Haaland scores 4 of them. And yeah, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But part of me is not that surprised that he does this. Like I didn't come at the end of that game, I was like, yes, I've done well, I've captained Haaland. But I wasn't massively surprised that something like this had happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, so like when I totally agree. When he got 42 points and I checked my live rank, I had a green arrow by a margin of 4 points. Like, let's just let that
Yeah.
sink in, right? So what that means is that like the engagement level compared to even 3 years ago has increased even more thanks to the likes of FPL Harry's YouTube channel as well as the others. People are getting smarter, and that's the thing about look, like if you approach the game in the sense that I don't care about EO, I don't care about what other people are doing, I'm just going to pick the players that I think are going to get me the most points and the captain that's going to get me the most points this week. Totally fair. Like that's an amazing way to play it. I'm just wired to be a little bit more aware of what's going on with the field because there's strategy involved with that, right? And captaincy is one of those things that if you get it right and you go differential and it works out, you have a massive gain. But it could also be a massive detriment to your season, not the end of the season, of course, but like stuff like this, game week 36. So it's just it's just I'd rather pick my fights in the different, maybe my eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th player than to risk the captaincy throughout the season. There's going to be times where I definitely risk it throughout the season, right? Like there's times where I'll captain Son against, the popular player in the field, but I have a good feeling about it. I see the floor and ceiling is about the same, blah, blah, blah. So it's just one of those things that I think you have to be a little bit more cautious of when you decide to go against the grain.
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe I'll get a lot of slack for this, but yeah, honest thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I picked my differentials. I laugh because people in the chat will say, Harry, you don't pick differentials. And that's true. I don't pick loads of them because often I look at it and think the risk reward is not high enough. But going back to game week 37, is there any way you don't captain Haaland this week?
No, it was those. It's just like that's also such a tough question because that week in particular, last week, it was one of those weeks I didn't even consider it, right? But when you're living life and you're playing this game on the side, like there are times where you have like a day or an hour or a minute in your life where you just start to consider other options and you can go down that rabbit hole. So, yes, I didn't consider it at all. But again, I understand why people might have considered going against him,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Harry, you did pick once a few Luton defenders. Yeah, I did. Yeah, no, I agree. And last week there were matchups that you could look at and think that Haaland was not going to match, like, or Palmer at home to West Ham. We scored 5 goals. How often did Chelsea score 5 and Palmer only be involved in one of them? Like
That too. That too. Yeah.
Isak as well. Like Newcastle scored 4. If he'd have put that penalty away, you'd have looked at the Isak return very very differently as well. And City only a few weeks ago scored 5 goals against Luton, and Haaland only scored one of them. So we could have had a week where all of those things happened, but we didn't. We didn't.
Yeah. And
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to move on, but talk about it.
No, I was also, again, speaking with Pross, and he made another very interesting point, which I do agree with. Top 100K it involves skill, right? I think so too. Would you agree? Top 100K involves some skill.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it involves a load of luck to go with it, but yeah,
Okay. Top 50K involves luck. Top 10K involves a ton of luck, and above that involves even more luck. Like,
you're telling me I got lucky? Is that what I'm hearing
oh
here?
no, no.
That's what I'm hearing. She
No, no,
basically
no, no.
said,
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to say is that I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically, no, I wasn't pointing this at you. Like,
"It's all right, I'm joking."
there has to be luck involved in this game. Wow,
Yeah,
you put me in a tough spot there.
yeah, and then he got 2 penalties as well, but I mean, yeah. And if Palmer had got a penalty and you didn't get the penalty for Haaland, then we would be sitting having a different
I
conversation this
mean,
week,
I
I think.
mean, Harry, I'll stand up for you. Like, dude, you're an excellent FPL player and you make the right decisions at the right times. People do not give you credit for that. Like, for example, you convinced me to go for Mateta in game week 30, 31 before he found form. Like, guys, like this guy knows what he's doing and he has an eye before sometimes others see. So give yourself credit too, man. Like you're, you have some had I'm sure you've had luck, but you've also had some really good decisions throughout the season. I will say that.
Thank you. So let's talk about other City players outside of Erling Haaland. Foden, De Bruyne, Gvardiol, Edison, probably the ones that we're looking at here. I mean, 5 goals and nothing really for De Bruyne and only an assist for Foden. It's one of those that you buy your tickets to the raffle and you either get the points or you don't. I wouldn't go sweating over the points that you've got.
Hmm.
If you've got De Bruyne and you've got Foden, hold with ones you've got. I definitely wouldn't go selling them this week. But I still think Foden is a better buy if you own neither of them. I don't see many teams though without Foden or De Bruyne. They're a nice double up if you can get to it. The issue
Yeah.
is it's hard to go with a double up when you have a 5 million defender practically playing left wing.
Yeah. 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 I think defender wise, Guvardio stands out amongst the rest, right? Besides the Arsenal defenders, would you say he's the best doubling defender this week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it,
Quite
right?
clearly. I
Yeah.
don't have a picture of the heat maps, but if you look at the heat maps on SofaScore or on the Scout members area or something, he is playing left wing.
No, no,
When
you don't even have to look at the heat maps. Like you
you
can
watch the
just
game,
watch the game and yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And it's crazy because if you think left wing, he's just going to be making these crosses, but he's in the box quite a lot. Like he's actually pretty threatening
yeah,
as a goal threat, let alone assist threat as well. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'm very good Gavardio curious. I think he might do really well in this game week.
yeah. It's the way that they play Foden out on that left hand side, and basically what happens is Foden doesn't want to be on the wing, so Foden comes central, and it just leaves this massive space out there that Gavardio just charges into. What Pep does with
Yeah,
centre backs and makes them into
it's
wingers
amazing.
is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
By far the best defender for the double. I am considering switching Edison to Gvardiol using 2 transfers this week. That is how impressed I've been with him, and also how unimpressed I've been with Edison at the moment.
Yeah.
That's why I think
I
De
just
Bruyne is difficult buy when you have a 5 million defender playing in the positions Gvardiol is playing in.
I agree, man. I agree. I think about midway through the season, I once complained on Burning Questions about what the hell is Pep doing, putting Guardiola center back, his best position as a left wing. Do you remember that episode? I think I was in New York. I was complaining about that, and look what he's the best manager in the world. Like he's made
Yeah,
Guardiola and the team so much stronger with him playing that position. It's
yeah,
ridiculous. So I really like him as a pick. I don't think you should be KDB shy at all. Like this is super important. They need to win all 3 games. I feel like KDB is going to start all 3 games. The only thing is, you have Foden, you have Holland. You don't have that many defender options, so you might want to spread the basket in terms of Man City assets, right? So,
yeah.
but I don't mind it at all. If you want to go differential for KDB, go for it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he's a good pick too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think De Bruyne is a good pick. I just find it when Gvardiol is as good as he's been to go and buy him. I suppose the question is if you've got a Walker or you've got an Edison, would you use transfers to switch them to Gvardiol for this double? Like, would you do Walker to Gvardiol this week for free?
No, definitely not. Like Walker's fine of a pick too, as long as you think he starts both. That's the question you should be asking.
I think they both start all 3 games.
Exactly. Same here.
It's a luxury move, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Luxury
luxury
move.
move. I think Edison to him is different. I'm fully planning on
Yeah.
doing that this week if Bruno's fine, and we'll get onto my transfers in a moment. But Edison, I need to get a sticker and stick it everywhere in my house that says, "Don't buy Edison" in big capital letters, because every time I do
Yeah.
it, about a week later, I regret what I've done. It looks great on paper, but it's never good in practice.
He's like he has to be one of the worst FPL picks, like one of the not worst, one of the biggest FPL traps of all time because it just seems too good on paper, but you watch the games and there's zero involvement, right? In the sense that they possess the ball so much that he's never going to get saves. and then one goal wipeout and it's game over. Like
Yep.
there's no potential for Ederson. So you're fully banking on the clean sheet. We were so avid to bring him in because of his starts, and we didn't. If Gavardio was an option in Game Week 35 wildcard, I think a lot of us would have gone that way. We just didn't know about his starts, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah,
Premium.
I don't mind the double move here this week. That is one I'm considering as well.
Yeah. Premium goalkeepers as a whole are never really it. I'm interested to see what they do with David Raya's price next season. 5.5 at a minimum. For
Yeah.
him. Two final teams with a double. We've been live for an hour, so let's cover these pretty quickly. In
Yep. Yep.
Brighton and Manchester United, they kind of feel like Manchester United feel like holds if not sells. I would not recommend a single Manchester United player to buy unless you need a goalkeeper and you have triple ups on everyone else. Then I might buy Onana this week, but I'd probably buy David Raya before I bought Onana this week. I don't think I would recommend, even as a differential, a single Manchester United player.
Yeah. I mean, disastrous game against Crystal Palace. I feel like Ten Hag has to go. I'm sorry to say it, but he's lost the dressing room. It feels, and there's not much hope. Even if Bruno's out, it's just game over. Arsenal, Newcastle, that's not looking good. You know.
Yeah, if Bruno's out, then I will probably sell Bruno and Dallo because I won't want any of that for the double.
Yeah.
Bruno's a hold if he's fit. Garnacho's a hold if he's fit. Dallo is an okay hold if you have got other things to do. But I don't expect them to
Yeah.
keep a clean sheet between now and the end of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Brighton,
No other defenders. Brighton, maybe
there's
Dunk,
there's a few
Webster.
there. Yeah, Webster's an interesting one. He's only 4.2. If you've got no money and you need to sell Maguire or a share, Webster at 4.2 looked really good in their game against Villa where they kept a clean sheet. So I do expect him to stay in. And João Pedro is 5.2 up front. If you don't have money and you need to go up
Yeah.
front, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. We discussed this last week. If you really want to go for a super differential, why not? Right? I think he starts both games.
Yeah.
Newcastle, Chelsea, not the best fixtures, but yeah, I guess if you need to go if you need the funds, you can go there. Defender, I don't mind Webster at all. I think he'll start both. I think Dunk is always a safe option. We just have to remember they're, really thin squad. So I don't see any clean sheets here either. So it's not like the Maguire to Brighton move doesn't entice me, to be honest with you.
No. No, I probably agree. I don't expect clean sheets, but there's not many defenders. Like, if you only have 4.2, like, there's not much else. Like, if you have slightly more, someone like a Branthwaite, I'd buy over him. And part of the reason, I'll get that graphic that I sent you from Rob T FPL up, which basically has the goals projected for the double and the percentage chance of them keeping a clean sheet. And what you will notice is both Everton and Arsenal have a higher clean sheet chance this week than Man United and Brighton, despite Man United and Brighton having an extra game. So
You mean you, you mean Brighton and Man United have higher?
no, Man United and Brighton have on the far right column 1+ clean sheet, 21% and 22%
Okay.
chance of a clean sheet. Arsenal have
Got it.
34 and Everton have a 38% chance. So you're better off by.
Brathwaite over.
Sorry, something just fell off my desk. Yeah, you're better off buying a Branthwaite or a Ben White if you can afford it over anyone from Manchester United or Brighton if you can afford it.
Yeah, but guys, come on, have some fun. Go for
Buy
the
Webster.
Webster here. Yeah.
By Webster. But yeah, it's also interesting. Matthew Morgan saying it's very useful looking at the projected goals as well, right? And this is why, Haaland, the Newcastle attack, Spurs attack, Chelsea attack are the ones that you're looking at. Interesting that Chelsea are only at 3.85 goals projected, but both are away games. If they were both at home, it might look a little bit different. But this is why you might want to gamble against a Dan Burn. You might want to gamble against a Gvardiol because those teams are predicted to score an absolute shed load of goals over the double and into game week 38 as well. But it doesn't bode well for like United attack either. Like only 3 goals projected over the double. And like I think they do well to score 3 and Brighton as well. So yeah. it
Yeah.
feels like
Everton 38% is great, man. Like they are very underrated defense. I believe they're second in the league for goals conceded this year. So, you know, dice
yeah,
ball, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Cool. I think that's everything
Nice.
for this week. Let's have a look at our teams for game week 37. Just 2 weeks left. Um, teams are up on screen. Both of us are on bench boost this week. Both of us have similar teams, but little bits of different decisions to make. So you have a Maguire issue in your team. I
Yes.
have a Bruno Fernandes issue in my team. So why don't you go first? And what are you planning this week? And do you just want to read your team out?
Okay, so I have a bench boost, Ederson and Petrovic in goal, Maguire, Porro, Byrne, Gabriel, White in the defense, Foden, Palmer, Gordon, Son, Richarlison in the midfield, Jackson, Holland, and Isak up top. So I have two free transfers and also about 2.5 million in the bank, maybe a little bit more. So a lot of different things I can do. Issue is there are not a lot of places to go to. So obviously the issue here is Maguire. I think everything else is perfectly fine. I will decide to keep both Arsenal defenders because I do want them for game week 38. I
Yeah.
don't think it's necessary to chase two more fixtures in that aspect. For the bench boost, I believe this is the fair order. I'm expecting to get hopefully 20 points would be great. That's my goal, but we'll see what happens there. So I have two very interesting outs here. Number one out is I could go Maguire to I think 4.6 and below, 4.7 and below. So that would be the likes of a Webster, Dunk, which isn't great.
Dunk's 5.2.
Okay, so never mind, not
He's
Dunk.
so
Webster.
expensive. At what point did Dunk get to 5.2 this season? I have no idea who's
I
owned
mean,
him at all.
yeah, but he was a stud last year.
But
Brighton were good last
he's
year.
more expensive than he started the season at. I have no idea how Dunk is 2.2 more than we had him in game week 1. At what point has he been bought to go up in price? That's my confusion. But anyway.
FPL towers, man. So basically, if I do that move, if I move Maguire to someone below 4.7, which there aren't many options, let's be real, then what that allows me to do next week is downgrade Isak and upgrade either Richarlison or Gordon to Salah. So that is definitely weighing on my mind. Issue with that is I will go into 38 without a Arsenal midfielder.
Mhm.
Now the option B would be Maguire to Gvardiol, Ederson to a keeper, and then next week I'll just do Gordon or Richarlison to a Saka,
Yeah.
or Havertz. So basically two routes here. No hits taken for the rest of the season. Good bench boost 37, and hopefully my luck helps me get into the top 10K. By the way, I'm 16 points away from top 10K. So
Out
what do you
of
think?
interest,
What
do
do
you
you think?
know how much you have for that goalkeeper?
I have so many funds. I have like a ton right now. 2.5 in the bank.
Do you? But so you
Yeah,
could
I have
go
a lot of
Maguire.
money.
So you could go Maguire to anyone.
Because I didn't go Bruno. I went with Charlison for the wild card.
So
So
you
that's why
could.
I've just
So you could buy Dunk if you wanted to.
I could buy Dunk if I wanted to. Yeah.
Oh, you got loads of money. Okay.
Oh no, I can't do Dunk because that'll restrict me from going Salah next week.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Right. So you
Yeah.
do have money in the bank, but that 4.7 is what allows you to get Salah next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I should have explained that better. Correct.
I mean Edison. So just look at my team. I have very similar issues. If Fernandez is out, I think Fernandez to Madueke is probably what I'll do,
Wow.
and only use one
Over
transfer.
Richarlison.
I can't. I got triple Spurs.
Oh, that's right. Vicario. That's crazy.
I mean, I could do
Much.
Fernandez to Richarlison and Vicario to Petrovic is another option, and just hope Gvardiol doesn't continue to get penalties or continue to score goals the way he's doing. So that's one option. So I could do Fernandez to Madueke. I could do Fernandez and Vicario to Richarlison and Petrovic.
Yeah.
If Fernandez is available, I think I will do Edison to Petrovic and Dalot to Gvardiol. It's boring, but Gvardiol is better than Edison and Petrovic is better than Dalot and Edison probably this week. So a lot comes down to Fernandes for me. I don't dislike the switch from Edison to Edison to Gvardiol, as a few people are asking in the chat. It also works for me because I can buy Petrovic. If you've already got Petrovic, it doesn't work quite as well because there aren't as many goalkeepers that you'd want.
Yeah.
Both of those just leave me transfers in game week 38 of either Gordon or Fernandes to Saka or Havertz, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy with that.
Can you explain one more time? Sorry, I'm looking at your team now. So you're going to go...
If Fernandes is out, I'll either do Fernandes to Madueke or Fernandes and Vicario to Richarlison and Petrovic, or I'll do the Edison Dalot switch to Petrovic and Gvardiol if Fernandes is going to be okay. So right now I'm expecting Fernandes to be okay, and I'll probably just keep him despite a difficult double.
What if you have iffy news about him?
If we don't get much of an update or we get what we got last week, I'd probably sell him. Sorry, Petrovic. Sorry, pronunciation of... I think it's pronounced with a CH or Petrovic. Yeah, I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, for your team, I probably would do the Edison, Maguire, Gvardiol move because I don't rate Salah better than an Arsenal mid in game week 38, and I feel like you're hindering yourself this week to get a Salah over a Saka in 38, which I don't think you need to do.
Yeah, it's like the equation is no Gvardiol versus Ederson plus Salah versus Arsenal mid next week, and
Gvardiol plus Saka is surely better than Ederson plus Salah.
But don't you think like last game at home, Liverpool, Klopp, Salah?
Yeah, but let's say Arsenal are need to win the league on the final day.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have Saka for that game. There's a narrative both ways. There's a narrative both ways. Salah is a great pick, and Salah is a massive differential if you can get to them on the final day.
Exactly.
But no one's going to own him.
That's what's so beautiful about him. I'm considering it, but I think I'm leaning towards that easy, double defense move plus get into an Arsenal mid next week because I value Arsenal mid next week as much as I want Salah. So Munoz, I think, is a great pick too. I think given Palace's form, nothing
just
wrong with that.
Just Wolves have so much, so everyone back is the only thing. I'd rather buy a Branthwaite than a Munoz this week.
Fair.
Cool. That's everything. I will do a few questions from the chat if people have got them. Send in your questions. If you didn't own Richarlison or Bruno Fernandes and they were both fit, who would you buy this week? I'd buy Richarlison.
Yeah, just the surety of him not being injured. If you had news that they're both perfectly fine, I still think the upside is in Richarlison, especially if you look at the fixtures.
Yeah, absolutely. Lamptey is injured for Brighton at the moment, so not much you can do with there. Webster's about the only, cheap. Richards at Palace, but he's like 3.9, and they go away to Wolves, so I wouldn't massively go there. There were a couple of super chats. That is true. Let's do these first while people send their questions.
I didn't even notice it. Guys, by the way, please, this is the first plug all pod. Please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe. Just, helps us out, get the algo out there. And, we want burning questions to do well. So all your support is very much appreciated.
So if you've got Bruno, if he's not fit, and 8 Nori to Richarlison and Dan Burn for a -4, is it worth it? So Bruno to Richarlison and 8 Nori to Dan Burn. How much is 8 Nori? I'm just wondering if, is 8 Nori to Dan Burn sit separately, right? Because
this is for a hit or without a hit?
For a hit. Can you not just do Bruno to Richarlison? I don't think 8 Nori to Dan Burn's worth a hit.
Yeah. You could just do Bruno to Richarlison if you're downgrading.
Yeah, I would just do the one and not 8 Norrie at home to Palace is fine. I wouldn't take a hit for Dan Burn over that.
Agree.
Would you buy, if you've only got 4.4 for a goalkeeper, basically, who would you buy?
Goalkeeper?
Yeah. So 4.5 for a goalkeeper.
Who are the options?
Verbruggen, Areola. Yeah. There's not loads. Areola has Luton at home. Verbruggen has the double, but he's not nailed to start both. Travers.
How much is Pickford?
4.8. You can't buy him.
Damn.
I'd probably take the chance that Verbruggen starts both in the double. He's probably going to start one. And I think Luton will score against West Ham. Luton have to get a point in that game if they want to take relegation to the final day. I feel like that's a kind of game state one. And Brighton are just much better with Verbruggen in with Steele. I'd probably take the chance that Verbruggen plays both.
Yep.
Someone suggested Muric, but away at Spurs this week, I'm not sure I'd do that. I know he's been good recently in terms of points, but it's been helped by saving penalties.
Oh, I forgot captaincy. Where you, Holland, right?
Haaland, yeah.
What's your second outside shout if you had to go differential?
Haaland. Haaland, and it's not moving. If I had to go differential, I'd probably put it on Isak.
Yeah, I like Isak too, or Palmer.
I'd probably go Isak over Palmer, but yeah, there's just no way it's not on Haaland.
Okay.
What did you do?
Super chats?
Maguire. That's all of the super chats. One final question. Okay. It kind of applies to yours. Maguire to Gvardiol and Edison to Pickford. Or would you do that, and would you go Pickford or Onana as the goalkeeper?
Between the two keepers, pick one?
Yeah.
Wow, tough. I think I'd go Pickford.
I think I'd go Pickford based off those clean sheet odds. It's different for a goalkeeper a little bit because of save points and stuff like that Onana could get across the two games, but I probably would go Pickford.
Like Arsenal, 95% chance no clean sheet. Newcastle, 85% chance no clean sheet, right? I'm just making these numbers up, but the chances of a clean sheet here in both games are so low for Onana.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's everything. Double game week. Good. Yeah, double game week 37 is here. Yeah, I know I said Haaland. I just think he's going to score the most points this week. So how do you feel about a Son captaincy? He's the other one because both are at home and one is Burnley. I actually like Son as much as I like Palmer and Isak this week, but you are kind of hoping for a change in form with Son over the others. But I don't hate a Son captaincy, but I will have it on Haaland.
Yeah, I just think it's not the right timing. Like, he could go off, like, as long as he does really well in that Burnley game. But even then, 30 minutes of final form right before this game of 37 wasn't enough for me to be convinced. The team is struggling. So
yeah, you're hoping for a team to change form. Whereas you're hoping for with Palmer and Isak, you're hoping for a continuation of what is currently the norm. With Spurs, you're hoping for a change the week that you decide. You're predicting a change this week.
Yeah, I mean, come on. He's coming off of 5 goals. He's got Fulham and the defensively weak Tottenham.
And
they're taking a big risk here to go against him.
The Fulham team were out flying kites. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny.
It really bodes well for that Manchester City away at Fulham game.
On the beach.
Beach for sure. Right. That is all. We'll be back for one final Burning Questions next week. Thank you all very much for joining. Good luck in the big double. 2 weeks left. The final real opportunity to get where we need. Thank you for podding, Andy. And like and subscribe before you go. Leave us a 5-star review if you're on Spotify or if you're listening to it on podcast. And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you very much.